Hey everybody, how's everybody doing today? Welcome to my Sunday live stream where we talk about photography and catch up with the community and see how everybody's doing. I hope everyone's doing well. Things are going well here. I've been really busy this week, out doing some shoots and photo walks and what have you. I mean, it kind of occurred to me that, and when I say busy, only the last couple of days because Thursday comes along and that's the day you realize you got nothing done all week and you need to get busy. I mean, I don't know what it is day to day, but I just feel like I got so many things to do. And then by Thursday, I only got maybe one thing done out of that whole week that I wanted to get done. The rest of it's just kind of filled up with just life, I guess. I don't know, but man, yeah, I went on a photo walk this morning uh, with the David Crooks Club, and also, we had a huge breakfast, and I just got back about 30. Had yesterday I went to the beach and tried to do some uh it's a dog park, right? It's a dog beach, I'm sorry. And tried to get some pictures of dogs, and that was a total train wreck. I'm usually really good at taking pictures of Ellie, but with other people's dogs, I was really struggling to get a decent shot. Um, I'll see if I can find one maybe or two that came out okay. Oh, but there's that, and then, anyway, I didn't really get as much done as I want. A few photo walks in the evening, and I'll share some photos from that as well. But, I've been hustling all week trying to get a lens review done, and it's for a Sony camera, uh, and the lens has been released. It's a 50 millimeter f1.4 for, excuse me, APS-C, but I shoot it full frame half the time or most of the time. Even though the image circle doesn't quite cover the entire frame, you can still squeeze out like 30 to 40 megapixels if you use the full frame, rather than say APS-C would be 24, 26 megapixels. So I'm kind of enjoying that, and it seems like a fine lens, and it's going to be very affordable. So I'll look for that review coming up this week. I also have another review coming up. And these are things that kinda got tiered in before I decided kinda cut the reviews off. They're just kinda showing up late. Because I know last week I said I was done, or tired of doing reviews, and I am, but, these are things I had promised, weeks and weeks ago, and they're finally coming in, and I'm finally getting them done. The other one is this really cool, flash. Where here. It's kind of a retro flash from Godox. I'm looking forward to, reviewing this. This is, pretty neat. It's more, I'd say form over function. Um, so I think this will make a great gift idea, more than actual practical use. It's just kind of for fun. But this is pretty cool. And a lens is a lens. I'd show it to you, but it looks like every other lens. It's just black with a lens hood, right? Uh, so there's that, and then but yeah, I'm a little disappointed. We're not seeing more third-party Micro Four lenses come out. They'll eventually get there, I hope, because they're making a lot of APS-C full frame, APS-C Sony mounts, but the Micro Four Thirds mount would be nice. Then I could start doing those because it's as good as these other cameras are, the Fuji and the Sony. I don't really enjoy taking them out. On an Olympus camera, it's very intuitive to me, right? I don't I don't really have to think about it so much other than, I wanna compose it this way, and then my hands just kinda dial in what I want it to do. Whereas, the other cameras, I have to stop my composition thinking and start thinking about settings and setting everything, where it's the Olympus cameras, I can just continually think about composition, and then anything else I need to do is kind of automatic. And that's a big deal. And I think that's sort of the biggest step to being more creative in your photography is your camera and gear needs to become kind of a subconscious or yeah, subconscious action, right? Like you just do things without having to think about it. And then you can focus on your composition, your creativity. You can look at the lighting, the scene. You can really take the time to enjoy the craft of photography and create some images. Whereas it seems like every time I take out my other cameras, the the images are very canned. Standard rule of thirds or front and center, fill the frame. Nothing creative. Nothing that you haven't seen 1,000 times before, and not a and a picture that I haven't taken like 1,000 times before. Um, Case in point, let me see if I can pull one up. I'll drag this over to this screen. Like, here's one I took this morning. Uh, this is Great Falls National Park. It's just a pano, and I just panned around, and I'm not crazy about this composition, but like I said, I've done this like I've done this shot probably 20 or 30 times where I just do a panel and go across. I have another series I want to process, but I have about 20 or 30 more pictures that are pretty much exactly like this. Um, and this is what happens when you're kind of focused on um, focused on your gear and not on your photography, and you just come up with images that you're not happy with. Uh, I mean, it's an okay shot, right? But what's the big deal, right? Big whoop. Anyhow, and that's why I say a lot of my photography, especially lately, has been very mediocre. And I feel like that's partially why, doing these gear reviews, particularly lenses. I love doing lens reviews. It's difficult because it's making me use cameras that I'm not inspired to use, so to speak. It doesn't spark any creativity. It sparks uh anxiety because I'm like, dang, because half the time I was at the dog park, the dog beach, I was shooting in single AF, SAF, and not continuous AF. So just about probably 80% of the pictures were out of focus because, the dogs are moving around a lot and I'm firing off frames and just about every single one was out of focus. Until I realized I was in continuous that I was in the wrong focusing mode. And then I switched to the correct focusing mode, but by then I was tired. I'd been there for like an hour already, so I was ready to go. Anyhow, I haven't even pruned through those images too much yet. I have a couple. Maybe I'll pull one up later. One came out. It's out of focus, but it was a pretty cool shot. I think if it had been in focus, it'd have been a keeper. But again, I was just didn't have the settings right in the camera. And that's what's really a pain, and everyone says that, like, Sony has, like, the simplest autofocusing system, uh, meaning, there's not as many settings to deal with, and you can just kinda set it and forget it, but that's really not the case. You have to be very conscious of the settings you're using versus the kind of images you're trying to capture, and, even this morning, I was in continuous AF, and I was struggling to lock focus. The autofocus on the Sony is, in my opinion, is not as snappy as my Olympus cameras, when we're talking about single point, you know. The face detect and the the human face detect is really good actually on the Sony, and it's very, very comparable to what I get with my OM1, and I think the OM1, given you have enough light, like you're not shooting in a dark theater, given, in normal lighting situations, the autofocus is really good on that as well, the face detect. Oh, Ellie's, losing it for something. Sorry. So there's that. So those are some of the things that I've been messing around with this week is some lenses for the Sony and a flash, and doing some photo walks. I did some night street photography. Oh my goodness, I got this is the first time I was out, because it's an f1.4, right? So you got to kind of highlight the low light, photography. And I went out one night. I think it was Thursday night, and this girl saw me with my camera and actually asked me if I could take her picture. I was like, that has never happened before. I mean, I was shocked, because I'm like trying to be very discreet and be very obvious that I'm not taking a picture of you, right? Of people. I make it very obvious my interest is in, sort of the architecture, the scenery, sort of the location. And I'm not really interested in taking pictures of people. So it's pretty clear when you see me, I'm not making eye contact. I'm not pointing the camera in anyone's direction. And, I get by okay. And this really, she really, I was like, all right, I'll take your picture. So let me show you that. Let me see. I know. And then all my confidence level went way up at that point, right? Because I was like, oh yeah, I should start asking more people to see if they want me to take their picture but anyway, it was I didn't, and I went home after that. I said I got the one shot of the night. I'm done. If I stay out any longer, it'll just be, a waste of time. So let me show you a couple of those shots before before I forget. Yeah, this one. Um, does this work if I click on? So yeah, this one. It's kind of funny. So I got two or three shots of her, and then I stopped once I got the one. And she was and I had to direct her a little bit because when you're in the street, and someone wants their picture taken, they just kind of stand where they are. So what I did is I can I get my face in the shot here? Let me see. Yeah. So what I did was is I directed her to move towards one of the street lamps, and so she put her back to the street lamp. I said, "No, no, no, come back over this way, turn around. And I want the street lamp to act like the sun coming down on your face." And then she got it. She's like, "Oh, I see. You want better lighting." So if you look at the image, there's light coming in from the top left down onto her face this way. And then the right side, you'll see a little bit of lighting here. There was a neon sign in the window, which was a white neon in this case, that gave kind of a little bit more fill light than I wanted. But uh, this image was very deliberate in terms of how she's lit, and I think this came out really good for a street photo. Um, so there's that, and so I really like how that came out, and so that's the one, and you can tell from the background blur and everything. It was this is an APS-C 50 millimeter f1.4. There's barely any crop in that, just a little bit of straightening. And I have a few more from that evening that I'll share with you, but let me catch up in the chat and see who's in here. I got to pull up my chat window. Um, I see Marco and Darko. Wow, Darko has a bunch of stuff here. Um, talking about a Tamron 20 millimeter. So let's see. Let's start here. I bought a used A6000. Wow, that's an old Sony with a Tamron 22.8. That's a cool little lens. It's much bigger than it needs to be, and that's a Tamron design where they wanted to make the filter size the same across their lens lineup. So even their small, what would otherwise be a very small lens, is a lot bigger than it needs to be. So that, but on the flip side, they're very, very affordable, and yet optically they're very good. So if you have a Sony camera, Tamron makes really exceptionally value gives you exceptional value for the money in terms of lens quality versus price. Nah, nah, it's buried in there somewhere. But yeah, it's not a small lens, right? It's a little bulky for an A6000 in my opinion, either the 20 or the 35, but optically they're very good. But the autofocus is a little bit slow on them. They're But I think I paid like $75 for my 35 f2.8 because they were having a sale and everything. Uh, it's normally only $200, right? Or 250 normal price, but it sells for like 200 brand new all day long, and I got a really exceptional deal on it. Um, Brand new. So, how can $75, I spent more than that on a tank of gas last week for my Jeep. So, um, but yeah, good, nice setup, Darko. Very good. I think you did well there. Um, and Soft Eddie's here. And Eric, oh, good to see you, Eric. Always good to see you, Eric. Thank you so much for your generosity last week. That was so greatly appreciated. Eric did a super chat for like $50 on my photo editing live stream, which, man, that made a big difference. Let me tell you. Um, let's see. Oh, wow. Looks like Eric chucked out his EM51. So, okay, let's talk about this for 1 second. The EM51 and Mark II died on the power button. I hear this is a common problem. Mine has not had that problem yet, but I do hear this about the EM5s with the power switch. So just be conscious of that. And then Ed De La Rey says he fixed this 4 times with some isopropyl alcohol. Oh, that's interesting. You must stab it inside and let it go in or something, but maybe just the contacts are dirty or something. That's interesting. Um, so it looks like, but for 200 euro, I now have a silver version. So did you buy one where they said the power switch is broken and then you fixed it with some isopropyl alcohol? That's the way to go, man. If you know how. Like I used to buy used OM1 film cameras and OM2s because it would jam in a particular way that I knew how to fix. Don't ask me to do that now, but you would have to take the bottom plate off and work the gears a little bit and re-grease them, and then they work fine. But a lot of times they would jam up, and they're 50-year-old cameras, so it's not really a design flaw. They just need some maintenance, right? CLA. Uh, and I got some good deals on some old OM1s. That's why I have like two OM1s and a couple of OM2s. I have 4 or 5 like Olympus film cameras. And Marco's here. Good to see you. Just back from a 2.5 hour birding boat ride. Nice. Yeah, lots of images. I bet you have a lot. Man. And let's see, System Chores here. David Hill, Gordon, John Thomas. Good to see you guys. Um, John, you'd say Surge is here. Surge is sending images. So I'm going to set up another one, I think, for Tuesday, a photo editing live stream. I don't know why I didn't post it up yet, but I'll post it up today after today's stream. So if you guys want to submit images that I edit for you in real time, I can, just send them through that link that will be in the description of that live stream. And see. The Sony A1 firmware upgrade is a pain. Now got to completely put back all my camera settings as new firmware did not allow even save on. Oh, yeah, that would be rough. I am not familiar with, I don't think I've updated my Sony firmware. I did once, but I didn't have any settings, right? Because it was relatively new camera and it still is to me, even though I've had it for several months now. Um, I don't, gosh, I probably had that camera half a year by now. But anyway, I still haven't really used it much more than just, you know, I make the settings on the scene. I haven't had any reason to save them yet because I don't know what I want to save and what I don't need to save. I just set everything as I'm going. So I've been looking for a small M43, but used prices are high. MPB for an OM5 is 920. Wow. 750 for a Mark III. Pen F 1150, a GX9 840. That's insane. Um, I would say in that lineup, the EM5 Mark III makes sense. Uh, but a better deal, if you can find it, probably for the same price as an EM1 Mark II, which is essentially the same camera, but has better weather sealing, better build quality, better battery life. Uh, so those things are better in EM1 Mark II. And the autofocus and everything is pretty much the same. And a few other features that if you bury into the menu, it has bigger buffer, faster frames per second, things like that, better pro capture buffer. Uh, and you could probably get an EM1 Mark II for the same price used. Pen F should not be 1150. That's what I paid for brand new. That's crazy. What surprised me was the EP7, right? That thing, we looked at it, what, a few months ago because somebody was saying, I don't want to pay $500 for an EP7. And I'm like, that's not too bad. It's not great, but it's not bad. But now they're like over $800. What the heck is going on in the used camera market? I mean, it's just ridiculous. Cameras that should be half what they're asking for. A Pen F, I get it. It can be a little bit high, but not 1100. That camera should be closer to $500 or $600. And even then, that's kind of high for a camera that's, probably 8 years old now. Um, but that should not be not should be that camera should not be more than 600 tops, and that's because that's giving it credit for, design and build and all of that. Some really good cameras to get that I think are still relatively affordable are like the EM10s, the Mark II, is really a good deal now, the Mark Ones. So the Mark I and Mark II cameras are really good deals right now. Problem is they're just so old that you have to find one in good condition, which is getting harder. And Jeff Painter's here, Ken Cox, good to see you guys. Robin Wong, oh my goodness. Wow, good to see you, Robin. Always good to see you. Robin really makes an effort to come into my chats. I really appreciate that. As all of you do. I really appreciate everyone being here on my Sunday chats because I never put up any subjects or topics. Like I said, I just kind of turn the camera on, sit down, and just jibber jabber for a couple hours, right? And yet you guys still come in and participate. One thing I do want to mention though is, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. I'll do my best to answer them. I'm not as good as some of the other folks here. Like I know Robin does a good job answering, and that guy, his name escapes me out, but the OM system guy is really good. I think his name is David, but David Smith, I think. But anyway, he's pretty awesome too, with answering questions on the fly. But I'll try. I can answer really a lot of basic beginner questions pretty easily, but, a lot of times I'll get a question that requires, it's like 3 menus deep to find the setting. and it takes me a little longer. Bay Bridge, good to see you. Um, yes, my health issues have been sorted. Thanks for asking. I'm feeling a lot better now. It's just something, it's part of getting old. Uh, it doesn't happen to everyone, but it is very common with older people. And it's something that can be managed, and I should be fine. Nothing serious. My finger is still someone told me I should go see the doctor again about my finger. You might be able to see on camera, it's a little blistered and it's red, so it's there's inflammation. I don't think it's infected, but another person looked at it, they thought it might be infected, so I have to, if you guys that don't know, I almost cut my finger off completely like a month ago, and now it's healed up to where, you know, it feels like a blister right now. That's all I can say. It feels exactly like a blister. So I'm hoping that, over time it'll just go away. But at the same time, someone said I should check it out. So I'll set up a time next week to do that. And let's see. My photography aura caught her attention. Yeah, I was in a good mood. There was a time when I was before I was into photography. We're talking like the year up to about 2015. I just got into photography about 2013. Up to about 2015 and before, um, I was really much more gregarious with women, and I had no problem approaching women and vice versa. They didn't feel any intimidation approaching me. I mean, why would they? But there was definitely a lot more uh, energy there when I went out with with women, uh, and that is tempered down quite a bit. Uh, Partially because I'm older and don't have any money, right? But back in my younger days, like between the year 2000 and 2010, that window there, man, if I was into photography, because I took a lot of pictures with beautiful, beautiful women with a point and shoot, because that's all I cared about as far as photography goes. And I have a few on my personal Instagram, which I don't update anymore. Um, but I wish I was the person I was when I was in my early 40s, when I was a little bit more outgoing and less shy. Because I was very shy growing up, all through high school and college, up until my 30s. But then when I got into my late 30s and early 40s, that shyness and went away and turned into like complete confidence, right? Of going out and meeting people, women in particular. And and then somehow around 2015, that tempered off again. And now I'm at where I'm at now. But for just a brief moment, when I took that young lady's picture, it kind of bring back the memory and the feeling that I had back when I was, you know, 15 years ago, so to speak. Um, and if I was that person then, if I was the person now as I was then, and with the photography that I'm into now, the passion I have for photography, uh, I'd I'd be out there like I would have, I think, a lot more volunteers to model for my photography. But as it stands, that's not the case. I mean, how do I change profiles? I think some of you have seen my personal Instagram before. Let me see if I can pull it up. This one. Uh, I mean, don't bother following it because I haven't updated this since probably in 6 or 7 years. So what's in here is just the old stuff when I used to shoot my Nikon camera. And of course, lots of pictures of the dog that I had before. This is Riley. And one of the reasons I got into photography was because I love taking pictures of my dog. And Riley was really the one that inspired me to get into photography uh, in a more serious way. And anyway, because I lost I had 2 dogs before that that I didn't have any good pictures of. So when I got Riley, I decided to really get good at photography so I could take pictures of my dog and going out on different adventures, um, when I used to go out hiking and stuff a lot. But yeah, down in here, like, you know, I was just Mr. Yeah, I was man about town back in the day. Uh, as you can see, if you scroll down occasionally, it's kind of sprinkled a little. I'm a nerd too. My big old Star Trek uniform back at this other office. Um, this building here is in Old Town Alexandria. It's since been painted over, and I don't know what it is now. It's probably still a bar, but this was a really colorful bar. Um, but now they paint it all white, and it looks ugly. It's nothing like this now. But it used to be a really cool place to go by. Um, but yeah, lots of pictures here from the old days. And I would say all of these are with my Nikon D750 or D7100, the 2 cameras I used to have. Um, so there's that. Okay, let's see who else is in here. Ron and David. David Crook's good. Yeah, we just went out on a photo walk together, David and I. And Robin says the ospreys are nesting in Port Deposit by the water plant again this year. Um, PD is about 5 miles below Conowingo Dam on Cecil County. Oh, okay. It's still a pretty good hike for me because Conowingo's is at least a couple hours, and um, there's some osprey nesting not too far from where I live now. I just haven't been down there. Oh, and then Ed is talking about clean it with alcohol. The silver EM 5.2 is new and no power switch problems yet. Oh, okay, okay, cool. But if I do run into that problem, I'm going to try that alcohol thing. Hi, Perm, how are you? And and I use electronic shutter as much as I can so they last longer. I think that's a good practice. I do the same. Looking forward to the new M43 coming in June. Any views? I haven't heard about any camera coming out in June. I think I saw something about a GH7, but they've been talking about that for months. Uh, what camera did you hear rumored coming out in June? I didn't hear anything. And Robin says, "Don't sell yourself short. You're doing great in these streams. That's the reason we're all here." I appreciate that, Robin. I try. Um, looking for a combined Robin Wong Rob Trek hour. Yeah, we should get together again, Robin. You and I. We should set up a collaboration. I'll email you. Maybe this month. Why not? Um, Simness, I never do portrait photography, but when in Cyprus, a young lady was doing selfie photos. I asked her if I could photograph her, and yes. So I got a few shots, probably rubbish shots. Yeah, but it's fun. I mean, um, things are so different these days, right? It used to be because when I used to go out with my point and shoot camera, I mean, I didn't take pictures of other people. I didn't care about other people. But I never felt like people looked at me funny for having a camera in my hand or taking pictures. Uh, I mean, I took there's so many pictures you guys don't see that I cannot post on Instagram. Trust me. Um, you'd probably think very differently of me if I did, but uh, there was lots of girls. They didn't care if I took their picture or not. So I would assume I would just say people in general didn't care, you know. And I don't know if it's because it was just a point and shoot camera or if it was just that was kind of the attitude back then is where it wasn't as big a deal taking pictures. But nowadays I feel like it's like, who are you? What are you doing? Why are you taking our pictures, right? What are these for? All that kind of stuff. Every time I go out, I feel like and it might be all internalized on my part. But I did have some experiences where it really deterred my uh, ambition to be a street photographer. So after those few instances, I pretty much gave up doing street photography, at least in the sense of taking pictures of people deliberately. Uh, but I guess there's no harm in just asking, right? In which case, uh, it's no big deal. But I'm a little I'm a little shy, and that's what I mean. Like if I was the person I was 15 years ago, I wouldn't be so shy about asking people, particularly women, if I can take their picture. But right now, I just don't have that same mojo. I've lost my mojo when it comes to going out. It's just not there anymore. And Gordon says, like the Star Trek photo off to Vulcan. Yep. Spock days, June 7 to June 9. Oh, I didn't know that. And Penn says, funny how a dog and not women made you get more serious about photos. Truly man's best friend. That's true. Because, all those pictures of all those different, young women or women, I should say, it's perfectly fine, but where am I like 15 years later? Do I care about them anymore? Not really. But my dogs, I'm going to cherish those forever. My dogs, my family, my friends, just random girls on the street. It's kind of fun to get the shot and, just, but the intent of my photography back then was to capture the good times I was having about, around town. Uh, Man, I have some shots, let me tell you. But I lost most of them at this point because they were on some hard drive and that hard drive crashed, and I'm still not really, but I really was not into doing backups and things back then. So I've lost a lot of the images from those days, unfortunately. Oh, Robin wants to do this. Okay, sounds good. I'll double check my calendar. I might have something next week, but I'll set something up. That sounds great. Um, Eric says, companionship is expensive, Rob, especially when it comes to five kids, one kid together and one kid of mine. Wow. Love them all, but you want to age fast? That's the ticket. I know, right? I look really good for 70 years old, right? That's because I have no kids. No, I'm lying. I'm 58, so or I will be in a couple of months. I'm only 57, but 58 for all intents and purposes. Man, I can definitely feel it though. I can definitely feel it, especially with this condition I had a couple months back. Some of you know what it is. I don't want to repeat it, but it's nothing serious, but it's definitely can be a pain. Rob Trek boudoir photography. I know, right? I would have been an awesome boudoir photography if I was into photography 15 years ago. Because I have some boudoir photos, but they were not professional at all. They were just with a point and shoot camera snapshot. I really should see if I can dig some of those up and edit them and see if I can make them look professional, but I really doubt it. But yeah, there's some really nice photos. And some women are looking for companionship and they have their own money. Yeah, if there's any young, not young, I'm sorry, if there's any ladies out there, you have money, I'm very cheap. I don't require much. Um, and I'll sign a prenup if anybody want. I'll sign a prenup. I don't want your money. But while we're together, we can enjoy some trips together, travel, just enjoy each other's company, and that's all. That's all I need, right? Um, but I'm so old now. Who would care if I'll probably die before they do? So even a prenup wouldn't even be necessary, really. Um, but that goes two ways. You can't have any of my stuff either. Oh, let's see. I was thinking the other day, why am I keeping so many thousands of pictures I take? Nobody will ever care to go through my shots when I'm not here. It's so true. I feel that way a lot. Uh, and I've said it many times, my photography is not that important, so I don't worry about backing up or, if I delete photos, I don't sweat it. Now, the exception to that, though, is, your family photos, right? Family and friends. Definitely make an effort to save those. You will cherish those to the day you die. But everything else, I think, if you have them, you don't need to delete them necessarily, but you know, don't sweat it, if you don't have backups for them. So that's why I upload everything to Flickr or Instagram, whatever, so that and my family, my sister in particular has passwords to everything of mine. So she'll always have access to the photos and things that I upload. And I upload a ton of family photos into private albums that my family can share. Those I consider important, and long as I have the JPEGs uploaded to somewhere, because they don't have to be professional quality, and that's really, to me, one of the greatest assets of photography is being able to save your life, digitally. But once you're gone, other than family, because like this is a problem for other friends of mine that I've talked to about this. It's like, who am I going to give all of my photos to? Like, I got terabytes of hard drives of images when I go. I don't have any kids of my own, and even if I did, why would they care? But if you don't have your own kids like me, and some of my friends don't have kids, what do you do with those photos? Who do you give them to? Who's gonna want them? Someone else in your family, maybe, but yeah, it's just not a thing, right? And I've gone and this breaks my heart, but I've gone to, like, Goodwill because I shop at Goodwill for, mostly everything I own. Um, and uh, I was buying some empty photo albums, or I thought they were empty, but there were several photo albums there full of pictures. They didn't even bother to take the pictures out. They just donated them in bulk. All these photo albums with the pictures in them, and they were just family pictures. And not too far from there on the other shelf was like these kitchen signs and things, that said, grandma's kitchen and things like that, right? So I think somebody donated, like somebody's grandmother passed away, and they donated a lot of the stuff that she had in her home, including these photo albums. But it's okay, it broke my heart that no one else cared to keep them in her family. But at the same time, she had those photos for her life, for her to enjoy during her time. And I think that's really where photography, even if it matters only to you, it's valuable, right? It's valuable to you. It doesn't matter if it's valuable to anybody else. But I agree with you in general. Thousands of photos I have here, nobody's gonna ever gonna care. Um, Even my family photos and stuff, a lot of people aren't gonna care. Even my own family probably won't even care about half of them. I got pictures of my cousins and stuff like that that, you know, it's just how it is, just dust to dust, right? Just like our life, right? We're born, blah, 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 we die. And that about sums it up. Not to get all negative, because I'm not trying to be negative. I'm trying to be positive because live life while you're alive. Do is live life to the fullest, because no one else will. No one else will live your life to the fullest. You have to do it. So live your life to the fullest and enjoy what you do and try and share that joy or spread that joy to others. Even if your sister has your password today, she won't be able to get into. Now they link your device to your account. Um, well, she has the password because I told her that. She has a password to my phone and my iPad as well. So she can get into my phone and my iPad, my PIN numbers. Uh, so she'll be fine. She'll be fine. I thought of that. Um, Eventually, I'll be too old to go out on wildlife photo video trips, and that'll be the time I'll go through all my old photos, videos, and post. I would post as you go because you never know, man. I would do it now, or make time to do it a little bit at a time. You don't have to sit down and do it all one day, right? That's a sad indictment of quality work. I fear you're probably right, Rob, but I have hundreds of photos of my family from the early 70s and before. Those are precious. All those people are gone. Yeah, I know. And if I recall, Andrew, you have quite a professional background, so I'm sure you have some very, very high quality photography, professional work. Not like your average enthusiast professional grade photography, but actual professional grade photography. And in the end, all you care about is your family photos, right? The rest of it, if they have some commercial value, maybe, but that is the other exception is if you're a commercial photographer, you need to have a very good cataloging system for your photos so that if somebody wants to have a photo of something from 20 years ago, you can provide that, right? Because there's either for nostalgia or because things have changed. Um, there's demand for authentic, original, vintage photos that if you catalog them and you live long enough, all these things can have some value that you can actually pass on to a family and say, you know, this is a catalog of my photos that are registered here, there, and the other place with agencies or with whatever, and they may be licensed, later on, and they are. Some of these photos are actually licensed regularly. That this has some monetary value, whatever that might be. Um, I don't know anybody personally like that, but I do, after you've been doing photography a while, you kind of learn all the different ways of doing photography as a business. And there are actual photographers that actually they do keep catalog of their images that are licensed out on a regular basis. And, because they're authentic vintage photos, right? You wouldn't know about that. I guarantee, Andrew, you have some good photos. As do we all, right? We always have that halo image that was like the perfect shot. Yes, enjoy your life for sure. You're always welcome to stay with us if you come to London. The hotels are very expensive. Direct metro line in the city. That would be awesome. I really should take you up on that one day. I need to get a passport though. I mean, I for years I've been saying I don't want a passport. I'm not going to travel ever, but as I get a little bit older, and we're only talking about 5, 6 years older, but I'm starting to feel like maybe I should travel, you know? Um, One day, within the next 5 years, I think I'll try and travel again. Oh, wow, you donated your videos to your that's cool. I've heard of that too. People have a lot of their, Super 8s and, you know, 8 millimeter film that they can donate. I got stacks of 8 millimeter. Some of it I've already converted to digital, but I actually have one on my YouTube channel. Let me see if I can find it. Yeah, check this out, guys. I'm sure a lot of you haven't seen this one. um, how do I get? I thought I turned ads off on this. Anyway, this is um, this is me. Uh, when I was maybe 2.5. So this was like in 1969. I don't think I was quite 3 years old yet, but this is definitely this is authentic footage that I know people are either donating or even using and selling as stock footage because that's my dad. I miss my dad. He passed away about 5 years ago, almost to the day. Sometime in early June, he passed away 5 years ago. But yeah, this is a cool video. Um, anyhow, that I have tons of 8 millimeter film that I want to get through. I've gotten through about a third of it, but I still have more. Don't don't travel too late as I'm 73. You got a good 10, 20 years left in you at least, says Matura. But yeah, London is a great place for buildings, history, and even portraits. I agree. I agree. I hear it's amazing. X Media has we have a I got one of your images I saw it after the stream from last week. So I will do that this Tuesday. But we have a local Facebook group here searching for old pics of our city, and some people are able to dig very interesting ones from 70, 80 years old, which their grandparents took. So not everybody throws things away. Yeah. Yeah, they're all over the place. Uh, I guarantee, there's just treasure troves of images around, but it's just a matter of finding them and cataloging them and making sure they don't eventually get destroyed. Big Robot says, I like the look of old films and photos. If you have, I like you have idea when it was taken without asking the same with black and white photos and films. Yes. I can tell from how I look. So I look like I'm like between the ages of 2 and 3 in that photo, so it had to be 69. I was born in 66, late in 66. I couldn't live in London anymore, but would like to visit again sometime. Grew up in Sarf, London. Oh, okay. Yeah, there's a big UK following here, that whole European area. Uh which is cool. I mean, all of the English speaking countries, I have kind of a good, I have a fair following. Not great, but fair. Um Picture pants, right? Love the video. Hey, picture pants. Yep. Uh but anyhow, uh I I just think that those are the things that photography, video, whatever, these old photos, they're old now, but these are things that I'm going to enjoy for the rest of my life. And then, yeah, that's not a bad idea. Maybe donate these somewhere, the digital versions of them, or maybe even just the whole box. I don't know. Because nobody's going to be able to use those in the future except people that actually archive videos. But like your family and friends or whoever you donate stuff to, they're going to need digital copies if they want them. Uh, Let me go through a couple of more images I took this week. So We saw this one. See, this is another one from that night. This is like some kind of artwork statue thing they were doing, and this is not actually steam. This is just water mist coming out. But this is supposedly the spot where some meteor fell down, a billion years ago into the river. I guess there was a plaque there. This is another one. Old Town Alexandria has so many really nice bars and restaurants there. It's really a nice place to hang out. This is where I usually start my photo walk is on Wilkes Street, and then I go from Wilkes Tunnel, then I walk down this trail, and that takes me to all the other marinas and bars and everything like that. This is the view from okay, so at the end here, there's some benches and stuff down here. And then from there, you can see the Potomac River. This is the Woodrow Wilson Bridge, and this is the MGM Casino, which I've taken many pictures there before. This was a morning photo walk in Old Town. So I took a picture around the bike shop and some flowers. This is one of the walls on displayed outside of one of the restaurants. And another flower, some benches with a with a crow. Now, what's interesting about this image is I want you to look at the sky here. It's pretty much blown out, right? Now look at this image. This is basically the same image, but the sky is not blown out. And this one was taken with the Sony A7R5, and then this one was taken with the Lumix LX100 Mark II. And and the exposure was virtually identical exposure. And yet, the highlights here on the Sony are totally clipped. There's just nothing left there in terms of detail. Versus this shot, it's a wider angle. I was able to pull all of this detail back in. And like I said, the exposure settings were virtually the same. Definitely like within a half a stop difference, not if that. I think they were identical for all intents and purposes. So I gotta investigate this a little bit more because there's no way a full frame Sony system camera should have clipping highlights like that compared to a little Micro Four Thirds camera. Because other shots I've taken, the dynamic range has been pretty similar. Like I could pull as much back in the highlights with my Micro Four Thirds as I can with the Sony full frame. It's really in the detail in the shadows where the two you can see a pretty stark difference. But in the highlights, I'm not finding as much difference in terms of capturing dynamic range when it comes to comparing the two cameras that I have. Um, but this image definitely is the one that these two right here. This is the one that really struck out to me as wow. Why is there such a stark difference? And there's the exposure settings, right? So this was at 1/1600th of a second f2 ISO 200. So base ISO. This one's at 1/200th of a second f4 ISO 100. So if you do the math, right, add and subtract stops from the shutter speed, aperture, and ISO, they're basically the same exposure. Uh, so I don't get, maybe I'll look at this again and I'll see why this is the case. But initially, I don't see why the Sony highlights are clipped. And then of course the color science is very, very different as well. Uh, but that's neither here nor there. Color can be adjusted to whatever you want. But the highlights being clipped like this surprised me. So anyway, there's some data for you guys. Maybe you can give me some feedback later on that. Um, This is the LX100. You can tell if you look up here in the top right, I put the name of the camera in the file name. This is a reflection shot. This is just, you know, glare, flare. Again, LX100. Just some shots that morning that I took with the LX100. And I'm going to try and do sort of a review on this camera or talk about this camera. But I think for the most part, uh, the LX100 is an awesome camera. This is, yeah, this is the LX100 also. I'm pretty sure. That was, yeah, that was somebody else. Anyway, and then let me go the other direction. Yeah, this is from that night. This is the Sony camera. You can see it's a 7R5 up here in the file name. But this is where I was standing, and I was taking a picture of this row of signs. And then she walked out of one of these doors. This is a like a cigar and brandy or scotch bar, something. Anyway, it's a private club right in here with this, I think it's this green door here. But she was kind of coming out of here and saw me while I was taking this picture, and then she asked me to take her picture, which is how I got that shot. So you can see the signs up here. This is the same location. Um, yeah, this is another one of the bars, and this is, I think this is maybe a Tuesday or Wednesday night. I can't remember exactly. Uh, and then let me show you another shot. This is just some garage. Um, so here I tried to pull, uh, what's his name? Alex Webb? Is that the guy's name? Let me look it up real quick. Yeah, Alex Webb. So Alex Webb is kind of known for layering, right? All these elements together, particularly people, layering. So if you look up Alex Webb uh, photography, he's really good at layering people. Like this is an Alex Webb, this is an Alex Webb here, where there's a person there, there. But none of them really overlap, and they all kind of fit together like a puzzle, right? Look at this shot here. Everybody's anyway, uh, Alex Webb, really amazing photographer. So this is my feeble attempt at doing an Alex Webb shot. Uh, and pretty sad attempt at that. But somehow I still like this image. I'm not sure why, because there's a certain symmetry to it, obviously, but and a little splash of red. Something about this image I like. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but this was one of my keepers, even though it's an otherwise mundane shot. But I feel like as part of a series of shots, this would be an interesting image. This is an alleyway with a reflection. You know, that's been done a million times. And this is a really good example of a shot that uh, I feel like has no inspiration, right? And just is just a waste of digital space. Um, and these are the kind of shots I get with my Sony and my Fuji because I'm not inspired to begin with so much. Uh, but anyway, this is a good example of just a mundane image. This is another mundane image. I kind of like the lighting in the shop here. The shop was closed, so all the lights were off except for a couple of spotlights up here. But this is a much more interesting shot when all the lights are on and you can see all of the different items. So what makes the shot interesting to me are all of the different little details inside the shop of all the things they're selling and how they're all crammed together and yet still display, I think, pretty nicely. Uh, this is a nothing shot. This is a shot just for demonstrating the bokeh. So this will be in my lens review. And then here I was trying to do some diptychs where I combine two images together. So let me take myself out. Uh, so here I was trying to, this is the bar theme, bar colors, very orangey type color. Oh, I even named it. I even named this orange. This next one, I named this one red because there's splashes of red here and here. So there's some symmetry in the splashes of red. And also the overall geometry is very similar. And then I put these two together because we have a flower here and a flower here. So I got two flowers that are yellow. So I put these together as a diptych. And then this one has primarily blues in it. So we have a blue over here and a blue over here and water. So they seem to go together. And then finally I took, two relatively mundane shots. And again, this one I called reflections because there's a reflection here and it's kind of a reflection here of the buildings up here. Not great. And then that's the shot I took today. So those are that's what I've been up to this week in terms of photography and editing and putting things together and experimenting a little bit, like doing the layering that I saw with Alex Webb photography, and then also trying to get better at doing diptychs, maybe triptychs, where you put two or three images together that kind of go together, and try to tell a bigger story, right, than any image by itself could do. Because like that last image with that meteor and the reflections one with the meteor in the alleyway, individually those images I think are rather mundane, but together maybe tell a little more of a story, even though there's virtually no relationship between those two scenes. Um, there's still some things in common, right? There's a similar color palette, there's reflections, and they're inanimate objects, right? So as a viewer, you start to draw these kind of uh, relationships in the image to help tell the story. What that story is, I have no idea. Like I said, even as a diptych, I feel like it was, I feel like even as a diptych, this image is kind of stupid, kind of boring to begin with. But, you know, you got to start somewhere, right, in your photography. Even though it sucks, no one succeeds without failing. So I'll consider that image a fail, but eventually with enough failures behind me, I will succeed, right? And I think that's the message all of us have heard a million times, right? Is try and try again, and you will succeed eventually. Um, let me check in on the chat. Oh, good. So Signatures picked up a G9 Mark II for those of you that don't know, and seems to be getting good shots with it. Not as good as birds in flight. Interesting. I wonder if that's because of the lens combinations, right? Because you're using the 150 to 400. I wonder if you got, maybe you are, but I wonder if you have native lenses for the G9 Mark II. Maybe that's the difference. And Eric says, the way I look at photography is we are diarist. We take a visual snapshot of our day, and one photo is 100 memories versus writing it down. Once we are gone, that's okay. The photos are for enjoying the moment. 100% agree. I mean, we do it. It's our hobby, right? We do it for us, mostly, I think. At least I do. Oops, I'm sorry, I saw that one. And my father had an old magic lantern with a whole bunch of glass slides. Donated to a local museum who made proper use of it. Way to go. Ooh, I like that idea. Definitely, because then, more than one other person is going to enjoy it, right? Like anybody that goes to the museum, so potentially thousands of people. That's definitely bang for the buck in my book. And yeah, if I come to London, we'll get Jimmy Chang, right, in a live stream. I know, right? But Jimmy, I can get in a live stream anytime. I don't have to go to London because it's all virtual. Uh, I have them at least every year for the annual meetup. Our usual suspects there. Uh, and Ed has a general question. How do you handle your batteries and in particularly their capacity? Do you measure or just timestamp or I I don't I don't really overthink it. I just bring a spare battery and when the one in the camera runs out, I put the spare in. And I can usually go depending which camera, but most cameras I can probably get by on one battery. Sometimes I need to dig into the second one depending what I'm doing, but I don't measure things. I don't worry about their capacity. I do measure them when I first get them to see what their capacity is, particularly the generic batteries. Uh, just because I'm kind of a nerd that way, and then I get a feel for how long they actually last in use, and then I just but I don't measure them. I get a feel for them after I use them over and over again. But either way, I always bring a spare, and then you don't have to worry about measuring things or having any. Yeah, don't overthink things. Don't make photography hard. You know. Uh, and then System says your night shots are fantastic. Never tried this. Think I would use my Pana G9 II with the Nocturne 42. All great fun. Yeah, the f1.2, man, you'll get some great shots. Definitely. So I love shots like that. Two hots in one as a series. Yes. Yeah, I like diptychs. I'm getting the feel for it. Marco says, if you had fun taking and gained experience editing and others like us appreciate it, it's definitely not wasted digital space. Okay. Well, yeah, uh, I definitely try to get some educational use out of it. In terms of, you guys know my thought process and what I'm thinking because I get it. Some people are looking at my images and thinking, man, you are like awesome. And then anyone else, most other people are like, they're okay. I'm like, they're okay. I mean, I got the exposure the way I wanted it. I got the composition the way I wanted it. But it's not particularly like an image that you would say, yeah, Rob took that picture. It looks like just about any other kind of image that anyone else could take that has fairly competent with their camera. I'm looking for images that I'm trying to expand my photography in a way that has my style or signature to it and has my way of seeing the world. And I'm just not quite there yet. I keep trying. I really do. But I keep falling back on the usual tropes, right? Rule of thirds, fill the frame, leading lines, reflections, shadows, you know, smoke, whatever. It's like there's a billion different rules of photography and things that we all like to try and have for fun to see if we can do these things ourselves and create really interesting images. But ultimately, they are just sort of copies of what has been done already, which is great. It's very educational to learn, by copying. I highly encourage that. Copy uh, other photographers' work and then try to make it your own. Learn the technique, thought process, the sort of motivation for taking that other photographers use to take those images, and then adapt those, but make them your own somehow. And that's where I'm struggling. That's kind of where I'm at now. So at the very least, I can recognize that uh, these images are fine, but they're not me, right? They're not images that reflect who I am as a photographer, as a person, emotionally, mentally, uh, or in terms of style, right? So style doesn't necessarily have to be like I use a specific color palette or I have a certain angle that I always take shots at. Style is being able to convey the world through your eyes somehow, or it can be that can be it. Because you take something like a Wes Anderson movie, the few that I've seen have very, very interesting color palettes, and that can be the style, but he doesn't use the same color palette every movie. And yet, when you watch another movie by him, it's definitely his style. Um, so this is where this is where I'm kind of stuck, or where I'm at, and it might be 10 years before I eventually get there. I'm not going to do it this year, maybe, or maybe I will. And but it's going to be fun trying either way, or fun working towards that goal of finding uh, my style of photography that works. Like, I never heard of Alex Webb until a couple of weeks ago when I saw it on Joe Edelman's Tog Knowledge website. He has a great index of photographers that he's curated and shares on his if you go to togknowledge.com, or his website, you'll find it. And I like to go there every now and then, not every day, not every other day, but time to time, and explore the different photographers that he's curated. And Alex Webb was a new one. I've never seen his photography before. And after looking at it and exploring it, I was like, this guy is really something. And then I watched a couple of videos on him where people were able to articulate better than I can his style of photography, specifically being able to layer things, layer people and objects into the scene. And he can just look at a scene and see a photographic opportunity and take a picture, because all of those shots are pretty much random, right? They're not staged, far as I know. And yet he's able to pick up the camera at that moment and capture that scene in a way that everybody can look at that and say, that's an Alex Webb, or that was inspired by Alex Webb. And that was my attempt on that other photo, to try to, you know, I was I took a lot of inspiration from Alex Webb on this photo. I mean, there's only 5 people there. What is it, 5 or no, it's 4 people. There's only 4 people there, and they're not even stacked or layered in any way. They're just standing in different positions, right? But, uh, nobody would look at that and say, "Oh, that looks like something Alex Webb would do." That looks like something Rob would do and just F it all up. So, anyhow, I hope this makes sense to you guys, and the message I'm trying to give you is, you know, try to find your own style, don't overthink it, and learn from the great masters what their thought process, their motivations for creating the image that they did. Learn how to do it, and then try to make it your own, right? Try and find ways that might be inspired by them, but then you've created something totally new. Maybe it's a combination of styles from other, you know, photographers. But even then, it really needs to be something that somebody can look at and say, this is, your photography. and that's eventually where I wanna be, right? I mean, it's a little hard because when I go out and I'm teaching again and doing some individual tutoring, and I have to constantly reset back to beginner mode and show people, this is how you use the camera, this is how you generally wanna compose a shot. 'Cause there are some compositions that are just, as a beginner, are totally wrong, you know? And, because and by wrong, meaning they're trying to capture, say, a portrait of someone, and then they capture from, say, the shoulders up, but then the head is, like, all the way at the bottom of the frame, like, down here, and not centered. And they're like, I'm like, "Okay, if you wanna take a picture of this person, you know, put it so there's less room on top, and you're capturing more, from the chest up and not, like, the shoulders up." If you wanna capture that person and stuff like that, experiment with different compositions, certainly, but there's some things you see they're just doing totally wrong, for where they're at. Now, if, like, a master photographer took the same kind of picture, right, after decades of photographing, and I look at it, I might not get it. I'll be like, "Why would they compose it that way?" Right? Why is the person at all the way at the bottom of the frame? But I've seen images like that where the person is at the bottom of the frame or they're on the right side of the frame when I would think they should be on the left. Uh, and sometimes I really don't get it when I look at a master photographer's work. I look at it and I just don't see what what is the magic? What is it that got them published? What is it, that they are listed as one of the masters or considered one of the masters? And I always look at it as a limitation on my part that I haven't learned to see quite yet, you know? But it's okay. Maybe I just don't like that style of photography. There's a lot of great music out there that I don't listen to, but it's not that they're not masterpieces. It just like doesn't do anything for me. And maybe that's all it is, right? I keep saying don't overthink it. Don't make things hard. Just if you like it, you like it. You don't, you don't. It's okay. Uh and I did try black and white. It just didn't make any difference to me. It's the overall composition that's uninteresting to me. The tones and the colors, I thought the color was more interesting than black and white, but overall, it's the overall composition. There's just didn't interest me at all. And I always try to carry 4 of my batteries. Sometimes I even remember to charge them first. The third-party ones are poor compared to the original Olympus ones. Yeah, third-party batteries, I've noticed typically they charge about 70 to 80% of what the original batteries are. When I'm measuring the milliamps that actually go into the battery, and then when you actually use the batteries, it feels like they're only lasting about half as long. Uh, but when I measure them on charging, they're charging close to 70 or 80% of the original, but it feels like a lot less. So if I'm bringing my spare batteries are always I always have at least 1 original when I go out, if not 2. If you come to London, only necessary to bring maybe one camera and a couple of wide-angle close-up wide-angle lenses. I have a good range which you can use. Oh, okay, so I can pack light. Good. I don't know what I would do if I had to travel, like, by plane. I would just carry what I can carry in one carry-on bag. I would not check my luggage. And then when I get to wherever I'm going, I would buy the clothes that I need. I used to travel a lot, actually, almost weekly, and a lot of times, it would just be for the weekend. you know, 2, 3 days, 2, 3 nights. And, I rarely packed more than I could carry on. And if I needed anything, I would buy it while I was there. Uh, but I usually didn't need much, you know? Okay. Uh, are you aware of Frames Mag? Yes, I am. There's a daily email from Thomas, who runs it, called Photo Snack, that introduces photographers. Some are amazing. Oh, okay. I did run across Frames Magazine online, their online thing, but I haven't been back to it since I found it that one time. But I do remember I was pretty impressed, but I kinda got this routine, and, if it's not in that routine, it gets lost sometimes, unfortunately. But thanks for the reminder. I'll have to go back and check that out. We all have different ways of seeing an image. That's what's so great about photography. Yep. We all see the world differently, don't we? Always looking for a style with photos, but currently looking at doing slow motion with video. Not so many do this. Um, well, Casey over at Camera Conspiracy, he does nothing but slow mo, right? But I get it. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see maybe a whole feature film done in slow motion, right? Just 2 hours of slow motion. And then when you walk out of the theater, if they played it at normal speed, it could have been in like a 30-minute movie. That would be kind of interesting. Says John Thomas says, I have an EM5 Mark III and EM10 Mark IV with 5 batteries. I have 2 battery pouches, one green and one red. I keep all the fully charged batteries in the green pouch and used ones in the red pouch, use in rotation. That makes sense. If you're going to bring a lot of batteries, yeah, you need to have a system. Otherwise, they get lost. I used to use a permanent marker and write battery number 1, battery number 2 on the battery itself. But that turned out to be kind of useless unless you're doing like what John Thomas does. You really need to separate them physically. Because after I got through 2 or 3 batteries, I couldn't remember. Oh, okay, is number 2 charged or is it number 3? You know, uh, so I just gave up on that. And now when I go out, usually one battery. Excuse me, one battery is enough. One spare is enough for me. Even when I go on photo jobs, the all-in-one battery, I got 2 originals. I rarely burn through even the first one. And the only time I go through the second one is if it's kind of an all-day job where I'm in one location, then change location and go to another location. Then I need extras. And regarding not seeing the point of some image, I think it's the case of personal taste and such. Someone once told me that closest I come to culture is yogurt. That's hilarious. And you don't like yogurt. And Dragos Grama says, Hi, everybody. Rob, I have a feeling that it's possible that you, me, and many others here are now in the chat know more than Alex Webb about cameras and lenses and gear stuff, but he is doing it more. Yes. I would imagine a lot of the great photographers, the masters, and this goes back to what I was saying, is like the gear needs to be secondary to your photography, where it's just almost rote memory and it's not interfering with your creative process. The camera should not interfere with your creative process. Whereas, when I take out the cameras that I'm less familiar with, like the first time I took the LX100 Mark II out, I was struggling. But now I got a better feel for it. And the Sony and the Fuji, I'm still struggling a little bit creatively with those cameras, but I'm starting to get a better feel for the Sony. It gets a little better each time, and then eventually I'll be able to take some decent images with it. And the Fuji, I think I could get up to speed a little faster, even though the menus on that are worse than the Sony, in my opinion. It just has a different feel to it. It has a more creative feel to it than the Sony does. The Sony definitely feels like gear, a piece of equipment. Whereas the Fuji definitely feels like, a camera. It has a little more inspiration or a little more vibe to it. And the Olympuses, of course, I have the most attraction for the Pen F, which certainly is a very stylish camera, love it or hate it. And of course, all their OM and EM series cameras have that kind of vintage feel to it, but using it, and I'm biased because I've been using them for so long, but using it feels very intuitive and logical in terms of photography and the things, the way they implemented or executed certain features in the camera just make sense to me. But I'm biased because I fell in love with the cameras very early on and have been using ever since. So it's very easy for me to say that. Uh, so I'm sure people that have been shooting, say, Sony or Fuji forever would say the same thing about their cameras. Like it's very intuitive. I have no problems getting around the menus and I don't have to think about it. I can just focus on my photography. Hi, everybody. You mentioned music. So what music you like or listen to during editing? Dance music. 80s dance music in particular. A little bit into the 90s, but mostly 80s dance music. Um, I can't even think of the names of the bands and things, but I know the songs. There's one song, "Better Off Alone." Do you think you're better off alone? I love that song. Uh, it's just some woman singing, "Do you think you're better off alone?" There's like 2 lines in that whole track, right? So it's mainly for dancing. There's no story in that. All she says, "Do you think you're better off alone?" about, 5 or 600 times in the song, but I love the beat of that song. And then, the other one, "I've Got the Power." I love that song, and "Pump Up the Jam," 80s kinda hip hop and dance. I can't dance. You don't ever wanna see me dance. Seriously, it'll burn out your retinas, but, I do love dance music. I used to dance, golly, 2, 3 nights a week until, somebody told me I can't dance. My sister went with me dancing, and she says, "Rob, you can't dance." I was like, "What?" She goes, "No one's ever told you?" I said, "No." And then I looked at her, and I said, but that makes a lot of sense." 'Cause so I stopped dancing. She even paid for dancing lessons for me, right? And the dance instructor, about 3 or 4 lessons in, pulled me aside, gave me the CD. This was years ago, right? We still use CDs. Gave me the CD and says, "Rob, I want you to take this CD home. I want you to listen to the beat, and I want you to," anyway, he gave me this whole spiel about music and the beat and tempo and how your dance has to kind of be in sync with that, right? I had no idea. I would just get out there and, I was a goofball on the floor. Uh, but yeah, I can't dance. And it's so funny, one of the girls I went out with, I told her I can't dance, and she's like, "Rob, how bad can it be?" I swear to God, I went out with her and her friend. I took maybe 2 steps onto the dance floor, and both of them dropped to the floor laughing their ass off. They could not stop laughing. So, after they got done laughing, like 10 minutes later, she came up to me and she apologized and says, "Rob, I'm so sorry. I will never ask you to dance again." And what's really hilarious is about 2 or 3 years later, I went out to dinner with her, um, and she was telling me about some date that she went on, and she said, "Rob, I know you can't dance, but let me tell you about this guy." Said, "You are like Michael Jackson compared to him. This guy really could not dance." I was like, "Really?" I mean, how bad can that be, you know? Oh, anyway, that's got nothing to do with photography, but it just I don't know why that came up. Someone asked me about what music I listen to, that's why. While I'm photo editing, so I guess it is photo related, and I can buy anything I need in London, so yes, you can travel light. And we thank you, Sister Natura. You guys are so generous. I really appreciate that. Thanks, Robin. I'll have to run. And Rob, don't forget to email Robin. Oh, yeah, yeah. I'll try to remember that. Uh, the main issue I have with Sony is the weight of the lens in particular. Yeah, the system gets pretty heavy. You look on paper, even a Sony A7R5 is only like 600 or 700 grams. It's not much more than an OM1. But yeah, in the field, when you start tacking lenses on and really using the camera, that thing is a brick compared to any Olympus camera or OM system camera. Um, just need a few beers to get me going on a dance floor. Most of mine were free when I was in the music business. Oh, that's right. I forgot about that. You are hardcore into music. I forget exactly what field, but when I was going through my vintage sound system stage, you had a lot of great feedback. So, anyhow, I don't see any other questions here, and it seems like the crowd is dying off anyway. People are people are heading out. I think I'll just call it here. I really appreciate everyone coming in today. I had a good time. I hope you did too. Thanks so much for watching today, and be here for my Tuesday photo editing live stream. I'll post that up shortly after I'm done here, and I will see you guys back again next week. Thanks for showing up today. I appreciate it.